What if I told you that the way we measure time, the horoscopes in your favorite magazine, and even the very foundations of science can all be traced back to one ancient civilization? A civilization that believed the stars were the literal words of their gods. The Babylonians weren't just stargazers. They were cosmic codebreakers. And their obsession with divine messages from the heavens would lead them to unlock the secrets of the universe and forever change human history. A universe alive with gods. To really get the Babylonians, you have to picture their world. Imagine living thousands of years ago in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq. There are no city lights polluting the sky, no skyscrapers blocking the view. When night falls, the heavens are a brilliant, almost terrifying spectacle. And for the Babylonians, this wasn't an empty void. It was the home of the gods. The sky was a divine kingdom, and every light, every star, every planet was a god, or at least the sign sent from one. They believed the planets they could see weren't just objects, but the living manifestations of their most powerful deities. The bright planet we call Jupiter was the celestial form of Marduk, the patron god of Babylon itself. Venus, the dazzling morning and evening star, was Ishtar, a fearsome goddess of love and war. The sun was Shamash, the god of justice who saw everything, and the moon was the god Sin, who regulated their calendar. This is the key. They weren't trying to solve a physics problem. They were trying to read the will of the gods. They looked to the heavens not out of simple curiosity, but out of a deep religious and political need. This drove them to observe the sky with a focus and precision that was unheard of. Every recorded observation was an act of piety, an attempt to understand the gods who held their fate in their hands. And this divine mission would inadvertently set them on the path to science. The king's celestial advisors. When the entire universe is a divine communication system, you need specialists. For the Babylonians, these were the priest astronomers. Known in their cuneiform texts as the Kupsaru-Tu Entma Anu Enlil, these individuals were some of the most educated and powerful people in the empire. They were a fusion of priest and scholar, and their most important job was to serve as the official interpreters of the sky for their number one client, the king. You see, for the Babylonians, the king's well-being was the kingdom's well-being. So celestial omens were read almost exclusively as messages about the king and the state. A strange halo around the moon, a planet looking dimmer than usual, or the frightening sight of an eclipse. These weren't vague fortunes. They were specific warnings or blessings aimed right at the ruler. The priest astronomer's job was to read these signs, interpret their meaning using vast libraries of past omens, and advise the king on what to do next. We have thousands of their reports, inscribed on clay tablets, and they read like urgent intelligence briefings. One might say, if an eclipse happens on the 14th day of the month, ULULU ... the king of the Westland will be deposed. Another might warn that if Venus disappears for 3 days, a powerful enemy will attack. This wasn't a game. It was a matter of national security. This practice, which we now call astrology, was the highest form of statecraft. It shaped military campaigns, influenced economic policy, and dictated religious rituals. If a particularly nasty omen appeared, the priests might recommend elaborate ceremonies to appease the angry gods. In the most extreme cases, they would perform a substitute king ritual. A commoner was placed on the throne to symbolically absorb the divine wrath. Once the danger passed, the substitute was removed, and the real king, his fate now protected, returned to power. This put enormous pressure on the priest astronomers to be accurate. A wrong prediction could lead to disaster. So, to get better at their jobs, they became obsessed with record keeping. Generation after generation, they meticulously documented every celestial event they could see. They created astronomical diaries, noting the positions of planets, the dates of eclipses, and even weather patterns. They were building a database of divine communication, believing that if they could find patterns in the past, they could more reliably predict the future. This systematic approach, born from religion, was an unintentional leap toward a true science of the stars. Mapping the heavens to interpret the gods' will, the Babylonians first needed to bring some order to the heavens. If the sky was a divine canvas, they needed a grid, a system to track the movements of their planetary gods. This practical need for a celestial map led to one of their most famous legacies, the zodiac. They started by identifying the path that the sun, moon, and planets all seemed to follow. They noticed this path passed through a specific band of constellations. Over centuries, for the sake of making their calendars and math work out neatly, they systematized this band. Sometime around the 5th century BCE, they divided the 360-degree path of the sun, the ecliptic, into 12 equal 30-degree segments. Each of these 12 segments was named for the major constellation sitting inside it. The lion, the bull, the scorpion, these became the familiar signs of the zodiac we still know today. This was a revolutionary act. It turned the sprawling, chaotic night sky into a structured, predictable system. Now, instead of vaguely saying a planet was near that bright star, an astronomer could state precisely that Marduk was in the house of the lion. It was the world's first celestial coordinate system, and it was a scientific tool born from religious belief. But they didn't stop with the zodiac. They also compiled detailed star catalogs. The most famous is a text series called the Mil Aping, likely put together around 1000 BCE, inscribed on clay tablets. The Mal Apin was a full-blown astronomical manual. It listed 66 constellations and stars, mapped their locations, and included notes on which stars rise and set at the same time. It even had formulas for calculating the length of daylight through the year. Through this relentless, long-term observation recorded on thousands of tablets, they built a database of the heavens that was unmatched in the ancient world. They had mapped the divine realm, and now they were ready to learn its language. The language of the gods' mathematics. To truly decode the heavens, maps weren't enough. The Babylonians needed a language that could describe the complex, repeating motions of the planets. They found that language in mathematics. The Babylonians were mathematical geniuses, and their unique number system was almost perfectly designed for astronomy. The secret was their sexagesimal, or base 60 system. While we count in base 10, the Babylonians used base 60. Why 60? Because it's a dream for doing fractions. The number 60 can be cleanly divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 15, 20, 30, and 60. For a civilization obsessed with cycles, a number system that made division easy was a game changer. The legacy of this system is so profound, we use it every day. The 60 minutes in an hour and the 60 seconds in a minute? That's Babylonian. The 360 degrees in a circle? That's them 26 times 60. They were the first to apply this 360-degree logic to the circle of the zodiac. What's more, they developed a true positional number system, just like we have. The value of a symbol depended on where it was placed. For a long time, however, their system had a curious quirk. They didn't have a symbol for 0. They would just leave a blank space, which could be confusing. Imagine trying to tell 2 from 20 without a 0. Eventually, they did develop a placeholder symbol to mark an empty spot, but the idea of 0 as a number in its own right would have to wait. Armed with this powerful mathematical toolkit, they created tablets for multiplication, reciprocals, and squares. They developed methods to solve linear and quadratic equations. This wasn't just math for math's sake. It was applied science. They used these calculations to build mathematical models of the heavens. They weren't just watching where Jupiter was. They were calculating where it would be weeks, months, or years in the future. Their unique mix of religion, observation, and math had given them an incredible new power: foresight, seeing the future in numbers. With centuries of observations and a powerful mathematical system, the Babylonian priest astronomers took their final spectacular leap. They went from just interpreting what they saw in the sky to accurately predicting what they would see. This shift from observation to prediction marks the true birth of scientific astronomy. They were the first to realize that the heavens were a realm of cycles, and that math was the key to forecasting them with stunning accuracy. But their predictions went way beyond eclipses. They developed arithmetic models to track the planets as they sped up, slowed down, and even appeared to move backward in what we call retrograde motion. They created procedure texts that were step-by-step guides for calculating a planet's position at any given time. While they didn't have a physical model of the solar system, they still thought Earth was the center. Their mathematical models were so good that their predictions wouldn't be surpassed for over 1,000 years. They produced tables called ephemerides, which listed the predicted positions of the sun, moon, and planets for years into the future. These were essential tools for their astrological work and for maintaining their complex calendar, which was based on the moon, but had to be adjusted to stay in sync with the solar year. Their expertise told them exactly when to add an extra month to keep festivals and farming on schedule. This ability to forecast the heavens was the ultimate answer to their original question. They started by asking what the gods were saying. Through centuries of relentless work, they reached a point where they could read the divine script before it was even written in the sky. Their obsession, born from faith, had created the world's first mathematical predictive science, a legacy that changed the world. The fall of Babylon in 539 BCE didn't end its astronomical legacy. In fact, it was just the beginning. The knowledge they had inscribed on durable clay tablets was a treasure that would be copied, translated, and built upon by civilization after civilization, shaping the history of science forever. The ancient Greeks were the first direct inheritors. After Alexander the Great's conquests, ideas flowed between Mesopotamia and the Greek world. Greek astronomers like Hipparchus, often called the greatest of antiquity, got his hands on Babylonian astronomical diaries. This was a revolution. Hipparchus used their centuries of eclipse records to make more precise calculations of the year and the moon's orbit. He adopted their sexagesimal system for geometry, which is why we still use 360 degrees in a circle. The famous astronomer Ptolemy, whose model of the universe would dominate for 1,500 years, relied heavily on Babylonian data and methods in his great work, the Almagest. In a very real sense, Greek astronomy stood on a Babylonian foundation. But the chain didn't stop there. During the Islamic Golden Age, scholars in cities like Baghdad and Damascus translated those Greek scientific texts, and with them, the wisdom of Babylon. They preserved and refined these methods when much of that knowledge was lost to medieval Europe. When those Arabic texts were later translated into Latin, they helped spark the Renaissance and the scientific revolution. And it wasn't just science. Their system of horoscopic astrology, the idea that you can read a person's fate from the stars at their birth, spread through the Roman Empire and beyond. The zodiac they created is still a cornerstone of astrology today. They started with a simple belief. The stars were messages from the gods. This belief lit a fire that drove them to map the heavens, invent new math, and create the world's first predictive astronomy. They transformed the sky from a realm of pure mystery into a system that could be understood. The Babylonians looked to the stars for answers, and in doing so, gave humanity the language of science itself. If you found this journey back to ancient Babylon fascinating, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the history of science. Let us know in the comments, what ancient innovation surprises you the most? The story of Babylonian astronomy is a powerful reminder that the line between religion and science wasn't always so sharp. For the Babylonians, they were the same thing. Their deep religious belief that the gods spoke through the stars was the very engine that drove their scientific progress. Their obsession with omens led them to keep meticulous records. Their desire to understand divine will spurred mathematical genius. They solved the problem of an uncertain world by creating a system to predict it, a system born from faith, but built with logic, evidence, and rigor. From the 60 seconds in our minute to the 360 degrees in a circle, from the zodiac on our screens to the empirical methods of our scientists, the legacy of Babylon is all around us. They were the original codebreakers of the cosmos, and their quest to read the words of the gods ended up teaching all of us the language of the universe.